What's up, listeners? It's Andrea. Today, we stumble upon the worst scene of the entire season. Sela opens up a little bit of a plot wormhole for us, and we proclaim, thank God that's over. Come nerd out with us.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Today we're talking Season 5, Episode 8, entitled Unification II. This episode was written by Rick Berman and directed by Cliff Bole. On Romulus, Picard and Data meet with Spock, who claims to be trying to reunite the Romulans and the Vulcans. While Spock works to achieve this goals, powers within the Romulan government seek to sully his mission into an invasion of the Federation. Oh, dang. Quick little tidbit I didn't pick up on last week. The episodes are not called like Unification Part 1 or Part 2. They're just called like Unification 1 and 2. And I went back and Redemption 1 and 2 was the same thing. So the Part 1, Part 2, I think that's just it's like a Mandela effect. We all kind of just remember it being like that. But I'm just going to go ahead and call it Part 2 because saying Unification 2 just seems weird to me. Anyway, what are your initial thoughts on this episode?
My initial thoughts were, honestly, I just kind of want to get this one over with. What about
you? Same. I'll skip ahead to my final thoughts, which were glad that's over. Those were my final thoughts.
I'll skip ahead to my final thoughts. My final thoughts were, this was a very interesting idea, but this was not a very interesting episode. Like the whole idea of Romulans and Vulcans having peace and reuniting, I was kind of like, oh yeah, they are related somehow, I guess. You know, it was a very interesting idea, but the episode itself could not be any less exciting.
No.
Like even when they broke for commercial breaks or when they broke for the theme music, it was just kind of like, for the credits, you're just kind of like, okay. There's no bum, bum, bum.
They try to end on a bum, bum, bum to cut to commercials so that you want to come back. And none of this, it just sort of like went to black and then came back from black. And you're like, okay.
And you're like,
I guess we're back.
I would not remember what was going on if commercials happened. I would not.
You know what? Remember being a kid and watching things on TV and commercials would go on. And if it was a really good show that everybody really wanted to like know what happened, everybody knew you had like 2 minutes to sprint to the bathroom, make popcorn, let the dog out, bring the dog back in, get some water. Yeah. And then jump and usually do some sort of ridiculous, like gymnastic vault over the back of the sofa to make it back on time. Right. And you hear somebody going, it's back on. Like that. You always had to have a spotter, right? Like there was always somebody who had to stay back and tell you when it was back from commercial.
And they would take the bathroom break next time.
Yes. Right. I imagine in this household, this thing breaks for commercial. Everybody's like, oh yeah, I guess I could like go grab a snack or whatever. The show will be back from commercial. 5 minutes later, people will be like, oh, is it back? Oh yeah. I guess it's been on for a few minutes. Like that's what I imagine in 1991 families with this episode. It was just so like
kind of lackluster. Like it wasn't bad. And I will say that it wasn't bad, which I almost kind of wish it was, which is surprising to hear me say that. But I almost wish it was a bad episode because it would give us something to talk about. Or we could be like, that was so stupid. That was so dumb. And I can't really say that for this episode.
I can. The whole like wannabe Tatooine bar scene with the like four-handed
the bar scene
piano
was super painful.
Oh my God. It was so fucking stupid.
All right, let's get into it. Let's get into it so we can talk about how much we hate that scene.
And then we could be done.
So okay, we had 2 storylines when we finished last week. And I didn't know they were going to keep going with the second storyline. So I was like, oh, okay, there's more to that. All right. So I was like, but I didn't care last week. I don't really care.
And when they merge together, you're like, oh, whatever.
But then at the very, very end, you're like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But
I feel like that whole subplot could have been a subspace communication where it's like, hey, Enterprise, we've been monitoring this weird disappearance of Vulcan ships, and it turns out that blah, blah, blah. So can you just go check it out? Like, we don't need this whole fucking, Dixon Hill in space situation. It's so dumb.
So here's what happened at the end of last week. We had 2 plot lines. Plot line A was Spock was supposedly defecting to Romulus. And so Picard and Data put on a bunch of makeup to look like Romulans, which was amazing. They looked so good. And they went down onto the planet to talk to Pardek, which is one of the, I think he's a senator. And he's friends with Spock, and they were trying to find Spock. And at the very, very end, last second of the episode, it was like, "You have found me, Picard," and they find Spock. So now they can get their questions answered this episode. Is he really defecting? Is he not? We all know the answer to that is no, because it's freaking Spock. Yeah. But the B plot was there was some junkyard being ran by the Zakdorn, and stuff has been going missing. And it turns out this Vulcan ship had gone missing. The Enterprise finds the thieving vessel, which has armaments similar to the Enterprise. And then they get in this space battle and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Because their weapons are kind of comparable, but they fire a warning shot at the alien vessel and it explodes because it's full of explosives. Mm-hmm. So they didn't get any answers. So to me, I thought, okay, that storyline's done. The Enterprise is going to now go to the neutral zone where Picard is and like pick him up on their way back or whatever. But no, it keeps going. So this episode opens with, it actually opens with some stuff on Romulus. But as far as this B plot, Riker's like, the trail led us to this woman who used to be the smuggler's wife. What trail and how? But whatever, who cares? We don't even care. So they end up at some stupid bar that's like the bar on Tatooine with this lady with 4 hands who's playing the piano, and she's flirting with Riker. And all the point of that is her
alien makeup is so awful and awkward.
I will say she's probably my favorite character in the episode as far as personality wise. She's got huge personality. I was like, who is this woman? And why isn't she on the show more? Because
why don't we have a spin-off of her?
Or just bring her back like they did with like with Kalar, the actress who played Kalar, and how she came back on the show like 5 times as different aliens.
Yes.
Like bring her back as not this, because this is dumb, but bring her back as something, because she was amazing. But I was like, I'm not sure.
She really like took the scene and made it hers.
It was her.
It really
scene.
Was.
The other people were just like co-stars, but it was her. Like she had including so much personality, including Riker, which is hard to put him on the sideline. Yeah. But she was amazing. But didn't super love her alien makeup and the 4 arms and the piano playing. And at one point, Worf has her singing Klingon opera. And I was like,
oh my God.
At that point, I was like, where is the 2X button for this episode?
See, I totally agree with you. And I was lamenting the fact that Star Trek TNG is no longer on Netflix where you can do the 2X button or whatever. And I was like, I can't deal with this. I wrote, dear God, what in the ever-loving shit is happening? Klingon opera, Worf singing, dear God, make this end. Please make this end. And I wrote that in all caps on my notes. Yeah. What in the ever-loving shit is going on here? And Worf was like, God, all proud and stuff. And I was like, no, hard pass.
It was painful. All of it was painful. But the whole point of her and the bar. The whole point, and I'm just going to like wrap up plot B because it's could be wrapped up in a scene.
So stupid.
So the whole point was that she pointed them to some quote unquote fat Ferengi. Yeah. And this fat Ferengi was the one who like sold the ships or something. So he's got the goods. So eventually he rolls in. He's just being dumb and boisterous, and Riker basically threatens to beat him up or whatever if he doesn't cough up the information.
Yeah, and I was like, that doesn't seem very Starfleet of you, buddy. Just roughing dudes up.
It doesn't, right?
Not Starfleet at all. Okay, but all right.
Yeah,
it wasn't. Sure. It wasn't suddenly it's a space western again. Okay.
Yeah, he tosses the food. Riker tosses the food on his lap, picks him up, grabs him by the scruff of his collar, and is like, "You better start talking, or I'll be very unhappy."
Or else.
Yeah, and you're like, are you going to pound his face? Really? I don't think so. You're pretty safe, Mr. Fat Ferengi. But anyways, and why a fat Ferengi? Like even that was just dumb. Like I don't get it, and it was dumb.
It was like they tried to do every stupid trope out of like old westerns, like a loud, boisterous guy with some arm candy, eating some fish, huffing and puffing about how great he is, a jazz pianist who will like give info for tips. I was like, oh God. Just make
or not even for tips, right? Just sit and play with me, and I'll just tell you
a fucking jazz lesson,
piano, and I'll give you all the information. It was weird.
It was so season 1, Shereese. I was like, and here I thought we had gotten past all of this. This is the worst scene in Star Trek season 5 so far.
I would agree. I mean, we're in episode 8 now. Yeah, I would agree. This This scene was, these scenes, the Tatooine bar scenes were just like, what the F is going on? All this, yeah, this could have been a phone call. This could have been an email. But whatever.
This could have been an email.
So anyways, the Ferengi tells them like, oh, we sold the ships to some other place, and this other place is near the neutral zone. And they're like, aha, this maybe what we're doing somehow coincides with what the captain's doing. So they go to this place. I forget if it's a planet or a system or what the F, but it's something near the neutral zone. And they discover that the ship has probably been sold to Romulus. And now they're like, something's really fishy. What do the Romulans want with a Vulcan ship? And so that's kind of the end of their storyline. We find out it wasn't one, but 3 Vulcan ships that they've kind of surreptitiously purchased over time. And then that's where the A plot kind of comes back in, which was the interesting point, but that's at the end. Okay, so rewinding back to the A plot.
Yep.
Spock.
At least that's over. So
at least that's over. Yes, no more Tatooine bars.
Well, you know what? I will tell you, at one point, Troy is talking with Riker, and she's like, I'm afraid I don't see how stolen Vulcan ships fits into all this. And I went, girl, neither do we. Neither do we. It's now, 36 minutes into this 45-minute episode. We still don't know nor care why and how these Vulcan ships fit in. But okay, all right. So we figured it out. Romulus is stealing Vulcan ships. Got it. All right. Take us to plot A, please. Set heading for A plot. Warp 9.
Engage. 9.5. So A plot, rewinding back. Picard and Spock are meeting in the cave. They kind of walk off by themselves to chat. And we don't really care what they have to say. Well, I guess we do.
We all know why he's there. Sarek told us the whole thing. This dude, Pardek, is talking about reunifying Vulcan and Romulus. And I think Spock probably went there for that idealistic senator. And Picard was like, I don't know about that. And we're like, but we all do. But we all know that's exactly why. Why else would he be there? He's not there for the soup. Okay.
Nope, nobody is here for the soup. Not a single person can Vulcan stomach soup. That soup, that Romulan soup. So basically you're right. Sarek already told us last episode why he was here. So Spock just tells us again this episode why he's here, which is exactly what Andrea just said. The end. And then Spock's like, leave. This is a very dangerous mission, and I don't want anyone else's lives being put at risk. And Picard's like, that's not good enough, sir. I represent the Federation. This involves us. I can't leave. So
yes, he actually tells Spock, Spock says, you cannot remain here, Captain Picard. And Picard says this kind of cowboy diplomacy won't be tolerated anymore in Starfleet. And I looked it up, and I didn't realize that was actually a saying. Cowboy diplomacy is a term used to describe the resolution of some sort of conflict through brash risk-taking, intimidation, military deployment, or a combination of those tactics. And it's criticized as stemming from this overly simple worldview where you can just sort of cowboy your way in through and shoot your way out and everything will be fine. And it's actually reads very much to me like something Captain Kirk was all about, and Riker too. Just cowboy diplomacying their way through shit.
Yeah, I thought that was a really ironic line because Spock was the one always saying stuff like that to Kirk, like you're too emotional, you're too irrational, you're flying off the handle, you never plan anything. And now Picard is accusing him of the same fault. And I thought that was really ironic and really funny and cute. So go ahead.
Well, he also has to be the bearer of bad news. And it was kind of the most perfect delivery of bad news where he said, I have something along the lines of I have an unfortunate task to be the bearer of some bad news. And he doesn't, in the end, actually have to bear the news because Spock already knows. He's like, Sarek is dead. And Picard didn't even say anything. And that's how he's dead. But what actually kind of blew my mind is yes, I know that this is a father-son relationship that's been very tumultuous. But he didn't really say my father is dead or my dad is dead. He said Sarek is dead. And I was like, that just sounded odd to me. But whatever. I mean, they had a very
strained relationship.
Yeah, very strained relationship. Exactly. Yeah.
The Romulans have a Romulan underground, and this
which is actually underground,
which is physically under the ground in caves. Because why not?
Obvious. Yep. You can't meet in someone's house? Like, what's wrong with a house? But
well,
all right,
I feel like it's the whole
fucking cave.
It's the whole secret police thing, right? You can't meet in someone's house because you can't be gathered. Like you don't want anyone to see you or know.
Yeah.
It's a very scary situation, actually, where the community is so volatile that the underground rebels' whole goal is peace. That tells you the state of their culture, that the underground movement is for peace, not for violence, but they just want change through peace. So they want to embrace Vulcan morals. They want to embrace peace. And so Spock is super excited about this. And he's like, yes, I'm going to meet with the young new proconsul. And I think he'll be amenable to kind of moving towards peace eventually and reunification eventually. I know it's going to take decades, probably lifetimes to happen, but we can kind of get the ball started here. And Picard's just like, that doesn't really sound like that's going to happen. And Spock's like, well, you just have a closed mind. That's all. So
I guess I do, because this doesn't seem like a good idea, buddy. Just going to tell you. Doesn't seem very likely because the Romulans have been pretty anti everybody. So I don't see how suddenly they're going to be like, let's all join together, brothers, especially where the Vulcans don't offer anything to the Romulans. Romulans are very strategic. And if they have something to gain, then they'll go ahead with a plan if they can get something out of it. But what would they get out of sharing their technology and whatnot? Great. They don't care about that. That's like asking the Klingons for peace. Come on now. Come on now, people. Come on now, Spock. You're not being logical. I'm going to tell you right now. He might have a touch of whatever killed Sarek, because this shit is not logical. But all right. Not to be overly glib about it, but you want to go ahead and
something here is not making
whip out a tricorder and scan this man. All right.
And Picard does mention that multiple times, like, you're not being logical. This doesn't sound legitimate. And Spock is just like holding out hope. So he does end up meeting with this young proconsul. And the proconsul to me seemed smarmy AF. He was just all grinny and smiley and, oh, yes. Oh, yes, I do want peace. Reunification. Let's do that tomorrow. And Spock is like, I'm taken aback by how quickly and thoroughly you are agreeing with these plans. And he's just like, well, I'm just down for peace. And that's what I'm about. So, we'll see you next week or whatever.
He plays a politician. This actor, I don't know who played Neral, but he is the perfect politician. Very amenable, very gregarious, chit-chatty and friendly and open. And like his smile is a little too big, a little too much, right? It's like when you see politicians kissing all these babies and I'm like, it's just too much, man. It's way too much. But it's enough that Spock is like, okay,
who does that? Let's just pause for a minute on that. Who the F is letting random politicians kiss their babies? Part one. Part two.
Yes.
Who's going around kissing a bunch of random babies? Like, who does
Don't
that?
you know that they're fucking germ factories? Stop kissing all these babies. Why are you kissing babies in the first place? It's weird. You're right.
This whole scenario, it's like people sitting on Santa's lap. It's another thing where I'm like, this should not be a thing. Why do we do this in our culture? We should not do this. So whatever. This is another weird thing that people do. They don't do this on Romulus though.
Yeah, I do not understand that at all. Like, I feel like when people are around politicians, like especially like big politicians or like running for president or whatever, it must be this like intoxicating kind of feel, because the way that I see people behave, like I've never been to like a big political rally or whatever, but when you see video footage of these people, it's like they're around the freaking Pope. And I don't even trust the Pope. So if I don't want the Pope kissing my baby, I especially don't want you guys kissing my baby.
Maybe it's like being at a concert or like being at Comic-Con, just being so starstruck that you do things that you would not normally do in your everyday life. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
We're gonna chalk that up to just like crowd.
I have a strict no baby kissing policy. Yeah. When it comes to me or any babies. Yeah. No, just, you know what? Hard pass. Anyway, he does seem like that politician who would be kissing babies, right? But Spock is like, okay, well, hey, all right, cool. This is going to be easier than I thought, maybe. Like, that's kind of nice. And as he leaves, the door opens and we're back. It's Sela again. She's back. And I was like, girl, I thought they dropped you off at whatever. Oh, she had made the quick escape after Data like exposed her ship. But she had been listening to the whole thing. And clearly Neral is in cahoots with Sela. And
she likes listening to people's conversations. There's definitely a theme here.
She's all about like listening to the Duras sisters trying to like seduce Worf. This guy talking to Spock. So she comes
really out of the closet,
that nosy neighbor,
or wherever she was. in my mind, it's some Romulan closet, but it was probably another room.
I feel like it was a hallway because like Spock went out that same door that she came in. So
no, I don't think so. I think Spock went out the door on the left. She came out of a door behind his desk.
Oh, okay.
So it was like it could have been another hallway, but
it's the listening closet.
Like
it's
a closet,
the closet of nefarious deeds. All right.
That's right. So she comes out and they just kind of smile at each other and you're like, oh man, he is not to be trusted. What a shocker.
The politician is not to be trusted.
You can't trust the Romulan government. So surprising. It's like, oh, Spock's not a traitor. So surprising.
Yes, exactly.
Anyways, that's what happens. And then he comes back. Spock comes back to tell all the rebels, good news. The Pro Council is like all for peace and reunification. We're going to get this party started today. And Picard is like, wait a minute. Flag on the play. That's false. There's no way he's going for it this quickly. And they're like, well, but, and everybody in the crowd is so hopeful. Like, yeah, this is going to happen. Finally, all our dreams will be revealed, all this stuff. And Picard's like, listen, he didn't get to where he is by not pleasing all the traditionalists. He had to have their support. He has to share their values publicly. So if he's going to do anything with this resistance, it has to be really subtle, really like on the side. It can't be a big public thing like he's promising. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And all the people are like, maybe the Federation just doesn't really want peace. And I was just like, ugh, this irritates me. Yeah, this irritates me. Yeah. Use your logic, people. Come on.
Yeah.
Y'all know your government better than we do.
Yeah.
You know they're shady and not to be trusted.
I love that. I love that Picard was the one who was like bringing the logic to the table. I think also it kind of, to me, feels like a metaphor for like, you could be a very logical person, look at Spock, but when it's something that touches near and dear to your heart, logic doesn't always apply. Or you kind of like actively avoid using your logic so that you can continue to pursue this thing that's like near and dear to your heart. Like I've seen people do the most illogical shit ever and they have the most crazy like justifications for what they do. And you're like, okay, so you are just on this like weird mission to do this other thing that like makes no sense because you are just choosing like not to look at things logically or like you're choosing to ignore that. And I think that's very much Spock. Like he's on this like crazy mission that like, yeah, there's some support for it, but like you're literally meeting with a politician who has pleased all the traditionalists. And he's saying he's going to accept this like extremely radical plan that's out of like the far left. And he says it's okay. And you're like, cool. He says he's on board. Let's order the pizzas and get everybody together. It's like, wait a minute. But as soon as you get the yes, like I want a puppy, mommy can have a puppy. Finally, yes. You're like, never mind the fact that you're at school all day. Never mind the fact that mom's at school all day, that you guys can't afford the food, that like vet bills are too bad. All this stuff. It's like, no, we're just getting a puppy. It's going to be fine. You start developing this, like, it's going to be fine mentality where it's like,
or is it? Yeah. Yeah.
Turns out,
spoiler alert,
never goes well.
It's not
going to go so good.
So,
well, at one point, Data is up, on the Klingon ship, and he's able to sort of piggyback on some Romulan signal to like break into their main computer. And they've discovered in their work, there's a secret transmission with a code containing the numbers 1400. And Spock immediately is able to like put together that like Neral has deceived him, as the Romulans are set to make the announcement about the unification at 1400 hours tomorrow. So 1400. But as they're kind of talking about this, Sela comes in with her like henchmen at gunpoint and holds Spock, Pardek, Picard, and like a few other people
to be there.
Yeah, at gunpoint. And Spock is like, oh shit. Suddenly he's taken his logic medicine because suddenly it kicks in. And he's like, oh my gosh, the only person it could have been is Pardek. And Pardek's like, no, we've known each other for 80 years. It can't be. But he's like, no. Spock is like, Pardek, you're the only person who knew when we were all going to meet. You were the only person who knew like when this hack was supposed to happen. You were the only person who knew the 1400 hours thing.
And you were the one who invited Spock to come here in the first place.
Yeah.
It was Pardek's urgent call while he was at Sarek's bedside that was like, hurry, come to Romulus. There's this chance for peace. You have to come immediately.
Yes.
So even the whole thing was set up by him in the first place.
Which I think this double cross doesn't make any sense to me, because Pardek has been like long preaching about unification being the thing that's needed to like heal these two worlds and all that. And suddenly he hands them over to Sela, who's got these other nefarious plans. It just doesn't logically, Spock is able to surmise like, you are the person who betrayed us, but why doesn't ever get explained. There's no backstory as to why. Sela just says, Pardek, thank you for your service to the Romulan Empire. You will be like rewarded or whatever the hell. And Pardek's like, huh. And like kind of walks off like behind Sela. And it's like, what the F just happened? We get this double cross for literally no reason. It could have just been Narol who sold them out in the first place. Like, why did Pardek?
Why did it have to be Pardek? Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it does not line up with his character at all.
It doesn't track. And I didn't think about that, but I had two issues with this scene. The first issue was, why did Picard and Data take off their costumes? Like, what their disguises? Because they're walking around Romulus with their freaking bright red and bright yellow uniforms on.
Like,
and I
command uniforms.
But yeah, I was like, maybe they beamed directly into the cave. I don't know. I just felt like
I thought of that too.
Makes sense. And I don't know why, as soon as Data got to the Klingon ship, he was like, boop, boop, back in his uniform. He was like, I'm done with that. And when Picard got to the Klingon ship, he was like, I'm going to go change. Why? You still need to be in disguise. You're still undercover.
You're still going back down to the planet. So what do you maybe do? Okay.
That didn't make sense to me, unless it was from like a makeuping, costuming perspective. Like, it's obviously easier for them to just be, well, not for Data, because Data's covered head to toe in makeup anyway. So it's irrelevant for him.
Head to toe. Yeah.
But like, maybe it was easier for Picard. I don't know. So that part bothered me because that didn't make any sense. And then the second thing that bothered me was like, wait a minute, if Pardek was the double crosser, now every single person in the underground, their identity is known. So
yeah, that's true. Like, you're all screwed. All of you guys.
And they just keep on meeting like nothing ever happened in the same cave with the same people. And I was just like, but Pardek was the traitor. He knows everyone here. He was like the leader of this little band. So that to me was also bothersome. That wasn't.
Like, this doesn't make any sense. Okay.
But whatever.
All right. But we finally get to kind of the root of this whole thing. Thank you, Sela, for explaining it to us. She lays out the whole plan. The Vulcans are going to, hear a message from Spock to be ready to welcome their Romulan cousins to reunify the system. But it's not going to be the reunification that Spock was hoping for. The Romulans will then open fire and attack Vulcan and conquer the whole planet. Right. And Spock is like, well, logically, I'm going to say suddenly his logic is fucking working after all this time. It's kicked in all of a sudden. Spock is like, well, the likelihood that you're going to kill me after I relay this message is very high. So I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to do what you want me to do. Because she's like, if you don't relay this message, I'm going to kill everyone. He's like, well, you're going to kill us anyway. So I'm not doing it. So she's like, damn it. And she's like, well, luckily I have a plan B, because Sela's smart about stuff. And she's like, I've got this holographic Spock that will instead deliver the message. It won't be interactive, but fine. And I thought, Romulan technology is extremely comparable, if not better than the Federation's.
I'm going to say it's clearly better, because we don't do that.
No,
I'm not in the Federation.
Well, you can go to the holodeck and have a fully interactive character. Why is their holographic technology so far behind the Federation's, where it's like you're just making a Spock that's going to deliver like a 4-sentence speech? Like, that's kind of weird, because I feel like you can make a holographic Spock that does like runs and jumps and punches. And
that's a good. Yeah, I thought it was really cool that she had a hologram just pop up in her office, because we find out. I don't remember how we had this conversation way back in season 1 that the holodeck technology is not totally fleshed out in TNG.
Yeah, the holo projectors are not.
Yeah, and how that works out is not quite doesn't totally make sense. As they're kind of figuring it out. But by the time we get to Voyager, they're very big on the holo projectors are only here and here and here, and that's the only place where holograms can be, and they can't be outside of this and all that stuff. So I thought it was kind of cool that she could have a hologram right in her office. Without having, cool. But maybe it was just projected from the wall. Maybe it wasn't as fancy as I thought, but that's a good point. She could have easily made a interactive hologram easily. She didn't need Spock at all. She could have just killed them all then and there. There's absolutely no reason to hold them as hostages.
She's like, I'm just going to let you live. And I'm also going to storm out of my office, allowing you to have access of everything in my office. Goodbye. And I was like, what? Okay. That's when I was like, this is so dumb, because the minute she storms off to be like, Huff, look how brilliant I am. I'm going to go put my plan into action. Data, Picard, and Spock are all like, okay, let's have a team huddle, everybody. Maybe we can create a distraction. I was like, step one, Sela, leave a armed guard in the room. Don't let the prisoners talk. If you don't need them, just kill them. Just kill them.
Or put them in the brig. Why are they in your office?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Under some sort of cone of silence so they can't communicate with one another to create this goddamn distraction that they end up making.
Yeah.
Which like, it's like, Sela, this is on you, girl. You let this happen. It's like letting, a chocoholic in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory be like, I'm sure they'll be fine. And they come out all chocolate wasted. And it's like, well, why'd you let that happen? You kind of allowed all of this to happen.
It's kind of ironic too, because Sela's like the queen of the plan B and plan C and contingency plans. This was like not thought out at all.
She like left her like spaceship keys on the desk and was like, I'll be right back. It's like, okay. Don't be surprised if they're gone. When you come back. Okay.
There was one line in this scene, not the fighting, the scene where she was like talking to them that I absolutely loved, where she's writing Spock's fake speech. And she's like, oh, writing is so great. I hardly ever get a chance to do it in this job.
Oh, yeah.
And Data's like, maybe you should pick a different job. And she just like gives him this death stare. I laughed out loud at that.
I love that he is still Data.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that he's still Data through and through. He's like, I'm going to offer a helpful suggestion. She like grinds her teeth at him and then keeps going. That part was great. At the very least, now the stolen Vulcan ships make sense. Sela and company stole several to use to approach Vulcan with in order to make the Vulcans believe that like they're friendly, right?
But really they're full of Romulan battalions.
Yes. So Spock is supposed to basically be on one of the ships to be like, I'm coming with my Romulan, brethren, and we're gonna all something reunite. Friendly, right? Woo! Yeah, exactly. And at least now we know where the stupid ships came from. So Riker, you can stand down. But Sela, again, because she is the queen of the plan C, D, E, and F, she's like, the minute this reunification speech is going to happen and these Vulcan ships are approaching Vulcan, the Enterprise is going to be occupied with much more pressing matters. And she basically relays like a medical emergency that needs like instant evacuation, and the Enterprise is going to have to take off to go deal with that. And I was like, yes, girl. Yes, this is the Sela that I know, who's got a contingency plan for her contingency plans. Okay.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. So for her to just leave the office with everything unlocked and like, I was like, okay, again, these things just don't track, but whatever.
What we in the business call a plot hole.
Yes.
They fell into a plot hole driving down the street.
Into like, it was like a plot black hole. Like it was huge.
A plot wormhole. And they came out on the other side.
Unscathed. And she's like, where'd they go? And it's like, well, you left this wormhole opening wide open. Anyway.
And they also, did you see how they programmed those holograms? They were also very simple, right? Like the holograms that popped up because Riker was like, get down, get down, get down, get down.
Yeah,
like he was like,
I'm just going to go ahead and say that Romulan technology is superior in every way except holograms. Their holodeck, not a thing. Yeah. Although no.
It makes sense if they don't use that for entertainment the way that the Federation does, but if they're so focused on war and conquering that they only use it as a tool, maybe that's why it's really like not that advanced, because they're
Shereese, you're good, because I would not have thought of that. I would have been like, well, I guess that technology just kind of sucks, but all right. Yeah, you're totally right.
Because I mean their cloaking technology is on point.
My God.
Because it's like war and
Federation. Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing. The Federation is not on friendly terms with the Romulans, so it wouldn't make sense that they would have Romulan cloaking technology, but they are on friendly terms with the Klingons. They help the Klingons out at every fucking turn. Yeah. At every turn. You can't throw me some technology?
They could create it. They have a treaty signed where the Federation has agreed to not pursue cloaking technology. So it's like their peace talks or whatever. They have agreed to never pursue it. Well, that's the
worst game of hide and seek I've ever heard of. Okay. Because the Romulans and the Klingons all have cloaking technology, and the Enterprise is like, well, I guess we signed this treaty, and everybody's like, yeah, we all signed the treaty too. Right?
Yeah, I actually
let's go cloak away.
I don't actually know who exactly is in this treaty, because they say the Federation signed a treaty, but the Klingons are part of the Federation, and the Klingons have all the cloaking technology, and it's super duper cool. So I guess everyone else besides the Klingons cannot develop cloaking technology. We find that out in the episode with the Pegasus. Later on in like season 6 or whatever, which that's like one of my favorite episodes.
I love that episode. It's so cool. Just the visuals are super cool. I am in agreement with that, Captain, where I'm like, we're kind of way behind And militarily, we're being dominated. So I think we just need to get on that cloaking technology, guys. But all right, whatever.
Yes.
That's a discussion for another time. Yeah, no,
Yes.
I'm super like with that dude.
Yeah, we'll bring that up when we come to that episode.
Yeah, we'll bring up Riker's old captain who somehow managed to like not blow up on a ship that Riker was on when we get to that episode. But yeah, no. So the Enterprise is like, okay, we made it to the neutral zone. Because we're not totally believing this distress signal. It seems a little shady. And I love that Riker knows Picard so well, even when there's like a message from a fake Picard to like stand down and stay where they are and don't get involved. He's like, that doesn't sound right, which I was like, thank you, Riker. Thank you for like being able to read between the lines.
Mm-hmm.
And Spock's message is about to be transmitted. Sela's like, there's nothing you can do now. Like this message goes out in minutes because Data used the holographic projector in Sela's office, which she left unlocked, to create kind of like project a new office inside the withstanding one. And like these holographic Starfleet officers distract the guards just long enough that like everybody can kind of peek out from behind the holographic walls and like punch a guard or Vulcan pinch a guard or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So knocks him out. And Sela is like, it's too late. There's nothing you can do. Spock's message goes out in mere minutes, which, as we know, minutes in Star Trek time is like hours. And as his message is being transmitted, it seems like it's Sela's message, except the message kind of breaks and Spock is like, issues this immediate warning, like 3 Vulcan ships are like approaching Vulcan, but they are not. They're full of Romulan troops, like warning, warning, warning. And it gets cut off. And Data is like, I'm certain that the message was able to be transmitted before, like the main part of the message was able to be transmitted before it was cut off. And the Enterprise is like, oh shit. And so they run to the neutral zone. And as this Romulan warbird decloaks in front of like the Vulcan ships, the Enterprise is like, stand down, go back to where you came from, leave the Vulcan ships alone because they don't really know who's on there or not. But the Romulan warbird like destroys the Vulcan ships and then recloaks itself
and flies away.
And flies away. And we find out, because now we know that like the Vulcan ships are full of like Romulan battalions, they just destroyed like thousands of their own troops to like destroy the evidence. And I was like, damn, that's cold. And that right there is why we will never have unification. Okay.
Yep.
Right there.
Yep.
Oh, it was actually really sad. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
You just you sunk your own ships to like clean up the evidence. Yeah.
At first I thought like when it decloaked, I was like, oh man, the Enterprise is going to have to fight this Romulan ship. And at this point, the Vulcan ships have crossed over the neutral zone into Federation space.
Yeah.
And so when it decloaked, I was like, oh, now they have to have a space battle, but we know the Romulan ships are just as good as the Enterprise. And we also learned last week that one shot from a phaser and the Enterprise's shields are going to be down to 72%. So we're like,
2 shots, 31%, 3 shots, you're done.
They're done. So we're like, oh, I don't know. Like if they get in a space battle, this is going to get really ugly. And maybe the Vulcan ships will get a chance to scamper away while the Enterprise is looking at balloons.
The Enterprise shields remind me of that troll in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where it's like, you must answer me these questions 3. The shields are like, you must phaser me these questions 3, and I will answer anything you need, and I'll be super helpful, and I'll just go away so you can blast through the hole. Thank you.
What is your favorite color?
Yes. Blue. I mean, green. God, if you have not seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which has extremely obvious crossovers to Star Trek TNG, check it out. It's really funny.
It's ridiculous and silly. So don't expect
it's so silly and ridiculous. Has nothing to do with sci-fi, but it is really funny. Anyway,
that was pretty brutal. 2,000 Romulans murdered instantly instead of letting them be captured. It was like, no, we will not let them be captured. I mean, they just decloaked, murdered them, cloaked, and went about their day. Like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And you can tell too that this is another contingency plan. If we get discovered before we get there, destroy the ships. Like we're not, take no prisoners. We're not being taken as prisoners either. It's pretty intense. And when Picard was arguing with Sela earlier, before all the guards got knocked out or whatever, he kept saying like, this will never work. The Enterprise will stop them. This will happen. Like all these blocks. And she was like, yes. And then we'll do that. Yes. And then we'll do that. So one of the things was like, even if you get to the planet, by then everyone will be alerted and they're going to be on your trail. And she was just like, by that time we'll be fully entrenched and it'll be a standoff and it'll be a siege and we will wait it out and we will win. And it was like, dang, she even has a plan for if they get to the planet and they don't automatically crush everybody in Vulcan. She has a plan for everything except for locking her office. Which, I mean, Spock did say, like, hey, Data, do they know that we have access to their computers? Or, like, did they ever figure that out? And he's like,
I
do not believe so, sir. And they didn't. True. So that all worked out for the best.
Okay. All right. I can go with that. I'm okay with that.
So then Picard and Spock and Data, with the job well done and high fives all around, are like, well, let's get out of here. And Sela's like, you'll never get out. There's guards everywhere. And Data's like, oh, I've seen the schematics for this place. I know all the secret tunnels and entrances. We can walk right out. And
I've also disabled all the cameras.
Yes.
And why don't we just Vulcan neck pinch Sela and knock her out? Why they wouldn't kill her is beyond me. But okay, whatever. She's like the mastermind behind all this badness.
Kill, capture, arrest. There's so many things they could have done. And I'm not saying killing is like the way to go. Like, Data, just murder her, because that's not a Federation.
No, but you can capture her.
But come on. Like, yeah, she's the mastermind behind, at this point, how many takeover attempts? Why are we still letting her...
And deaths, and yeah.
Why are we still letting her have reigns?
Yeah, yes. Why are we still letting her roam free? This is really stupid.
Plant some evidence on her so her government turns on her. Be really like Romulan about it. I don't know. But basically, Data's just like, we don't want you to alert the guards. So Vulcan neck pinches her, and then they just walk out. They just walk on out.
They like
no guards
out.
Outside of her door.
They totally just stroll out.
Apparently there's no guards outside. There's no guards anywhere. They just walk out and then just beam back to the Klingon ship, and all is well.
Yeah. And Picard at the end, they go to say goodbye, and Spock is like, I will not be going with you. This reunification is our fate. It's got a movement that can't be stopped, and I must be here to be a part of it. And, as a farewell, Picard offers Spock the chance to do a mind meld to share what Sarek shared with Picard. And it was kind of a nice ending where the episode wraps with the mind meld and Picard looking like very at peace and Spock looking like overwhelmed with love and emotion. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. But that's where the episode ends. And I'll share my final thoughts again. Glad that's over. Yeah. That whole thing sucked. I did not like this episode at all. And I was like, oh, now I know why I've never gone back to watch this. And I never will again.
No, this was the last time on the rewatch train for me for these 2 episodes.
Well, a little bit of trivia. Unification was actually created as a tie-in to Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, which is a movie that Spock was supposed to be a part of. And it had to do with like Klingon peace and Romulan peace treaties with the Federation. So this was actually a teaser trailer for that. And actually, due to Leonard Nimoy's schedule, filming of the second episode occurred first, and then they filmed part 1, which I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, you think you would just sort of film
because he was literally only in one scene in the entire first episode.
Yeah, so you just need him for like 15 minutes at the end to be like, hey, we just need you to say this one line 4 or 5 times, and you're good. Like, at the end of the day, it's whatever. Anyway, so that was that. Do you have any final thoughts?
No.
Let's never watch this again. How about that?
Agreed.
And if we ever wonder why we haven't seen this episode in a long time, like 10 years from now, we'll do a Vulcan mind meld and be like, oh, that's right. Remember, it's really bad. And then we'll save ourselves from watching an hour of this awful television.
Every time I see the thumbnail with a Vulcan on it, I'm like, next, no, next.
Yeah.
Next.
Yep.
So I don't know.
I do that more than with the Klingons, because the Klingons by season 5 start getting pretty interesting. The first couple of seasons, they're really one note and it bugs me. But like anytime I see Vulcan anything, I'm like, no. I'm like a baby when you're trying to feed them like mashed potatoes and they keep doing that head thing where they keep turning away like, I don't want that. That's how I feel. Anyway, next week is a really fun episode. Guys, we're breaking down season 5, episode 9, A Matter of Time. Be there or be square. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening.
Bye.
Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.